Going for two, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment and running it deep? Even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the Armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo! This is the Armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on, guys, and welcome to episode 245 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We are part of the Going for Two Live podcast network. You can follow them on at Going for Two Live on Twitter. We are live every Wednesday and Friday night on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, syndicated in all major podcast networks, and also streaming the Going for Two app for iOS and Android. If you are on Twitter and you wish to interact with the show, please go find us on YouTube. The comment section is not working on our Twitter interface, so please go find us on YouTube and you can talk to us. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. Ryan will always remind me to say that, so hit that subscribe button on YouTube, please. All right, man. Let's jump right into it, Ryan. Man, how you doing tonight?
Dude, look at me teaching you good habits for a change.
I know, right?
The opposite. I'm really proud of myself. I'm excited John's here, and I kind of just get to be quiet and watch him go. But happy to be here, man. Good
stuff. Yeah, speaking of John, so he's a fan favorite. Most of y'all probably already know who he is, but I'll introduce him anyway. John Laub from FootballDiehards.com, also co-host of the Draft Seminar on the Sports Illustrated Draft Bible. What's up, John?
I'm getting ready for the fantasy football playoffs and the holiday season. Man, I'm on vacation in about 7 days.
Nice.
I cannot wait for vacation. And I got 11 playoff games coming up this weekend. I'm just hoping to survive COVID so that I can feel the team on every one of them.
Yeah, agreed. Where are you going on vacation? You going somewhere?
No, not this year. We're just staying home with the family. You know, my parents are older now, so I'm trying to spending time with them. They're 84 and 71, so you take every day you have with them as a gift, and so we're staying home. But I'm just not working.
Yeah,
I got 2 days left, man. I'm counting it down, and I'm off till the new year. I can't wait.
Oh man, I hate you both. I work in retail, so I'm working straight through. I get Christmas off. That's about it. So
probably not many fancy playoffs either to look forward to.
No, I definitely have some fancy playoffs to look forward to. Actually, a couple of leagues that we might be together in as well. I'm in the Crab Cake Invitational playoffs. I don't know if you made it or not.
I missed that one.
Yeah, I think I beat you to put you out. All right, John, for those that don't know you, give us a quick rundown of what it is you do in the fantasy space.
So I've been this will be my 9th year of doing my draft profiles on FootballDiehards.com. And I'm just starting to put in the numbers now into my model. Not completely done. I still have bowl games, championship games. There'll be players playing there. So the final numbers are not there, but I'm starting to get an idea of where the model directs me. And those will be coming out starting in early February. I'm also working with the NFL Draft Bible again, doing the Draft Seminar series with Matt Hicks. Those are our breakdowns about the top 48 NFL draft prospects. So those will be available. I think we're going to kick those off also in early February.
Nice.
It depends, working backwards from the draft. I forgot the exact date, but that's what I'm working on now. The playoff teams are obviously, I want to get those maybe a ring or two, but it's really draft season for me now.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. And definitely, guys, if you don't already follow him, go follow him at GridironSkull91. Definitely a great follow, especially if you're into Dynasty and you want to know anything about the upcoming class. John is definitely the one to follow. All right, let's get to the 101s.
And now, The five. 101s.
All right, the way this works, John, we're going to give you 5 categories, non-fantasy football related. You're going to give us your 101 for that category. And this first one was interesting for me because you have so much energy, so I want to know your secret here. Your favorite coffee drink or energy drink? What's your 101 there?
So before I tell you, you won't believe this. I never drank coffee till I was 30.
Wow.
So I just did not like the taste. And then all of a sudden, coffee shops started to open. When I was a kid, there was no such thing as a coffee shop. You got it at McDonald's or mom and dad.
Right.
It was terrible.
7-Eleven.
So I started going to a coffee shop, and I fell in love with Sumatra dark roast from Starbucks. And I just love dark roast coffee now.
Nice.
I can barely take mild. It's like a light beer. I'm just not going to do it. So I like the dark roast. And it's funny, when I first got married and my wife and I were living together, she did not like dark roast. She's like, that stuff's nasty. But, after 6 years of marriage, about a year ago, she goes, I like your dark roast now. I'm like, you see, just give it some time, my love, and dark roast work.
Nice. Good stuff. All right, your 101 movie villain.
I'm going to go a little off the grid here. I love the movie Man of Steel. I don't know why people don't love it as much as I do, but I'm obsessed with this movie. I've already seen it like 20 times. General Zod in that film, who is played by Michael Shannon, is unfreaking believable. That I just love that movie, and literally, I think Zod is a better character than Superman himself in that film because he's just so evil and obsessed. I just love Zod in The Man of Steel.
Awesome.
John, I love that movie too.
Yeah, it's great, right?
All the DC movies have a bad rap.
Yeah.
They do. They're not as good as the Marvel, but they have a bad rap. I mean,
they're good and they're different.
Yeah.
I have no qualms with any of them. I enjoy most of them.
I agree.
Yep, and we've been doing this segment for a while now, and I always change the categories up, and we always throw movie villain in there every once in a while. And I think you might be the first person to not use Thanos as the movie.
Oh.
Everyone picks Thanos. I was like,
Thanos isn't in my top 3, to tell you the truth. He did not make the final 3 cut.
Awesome.
It's almost Christmas. It should be Hans Gruber.
Yeah, that's another good one. I love it. All right, man. Speaking of the holidays, what's your 101 holiday movie?
So anyone who knows me, I'm an old man. And when I grew up, my family and I, so it's a little bit of a memory thing, and maybe the movie's outdated, but I love A Charlie Brown Christmas. I mean, it was just a quick half hour. It's a cartoon, and when you were 7 years old in the 70s and mom and dad got together, it was a Charlie Brown Christmas, and the snowman, I forgot what the snowman
Frosty
movie, but they were like always back to back. I love Charlie Brown Christmas.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember that too. It was always an event when they came out. You always knew it was getting close to Christmas when it was on TV. You're like, oh yeah, yes! It's close to Christmas. I love it. Good stuff. Yeah. All right, what about childhood cartoon?
I don't know if anyone else loved this, but my brother and I were addicted to it. It's the Flintstones. And, I mean, there was nothing better than the relationship between Barney and Fred. And there's a lot of levels in that relationship. And the show is probably a little sexist because Fred is a husband. But, man, I mean, I was a little kid. I didn't think about that. I'm in the 70s. But Bam Bam and Pebbles and the dinosaur in the house. And I'm a dog guy, so I appreciated the relationship with the dinosaur. And then they had that weird... oh my God! What was the Martian dude?
The green guy. I can't think of his name. Yeah, Gazoo. There you go. Yes.
The Great Gazoo. Yeah. I mean, literally, like, how many drugs were the writers on when they threw the Great Gazoo? And like, when you're a little kid, you have no idea. But this little green man from outer space, and only Fred and Barney love the Great Gazoo. I mean, it's so bizarre. But I love the Flintstones.
That's awesome. That brings me back to, because I was a big fan of the Flintstones as well too. Great pull on Gazoo, because I couldn't think of his name for the life of me. Great pull.
Yeah.
Last one here. Your 101 comic book character.
So I got to break this up into 2 because I have my childhood phase and my teenager phase. My childhood phase was Batman. absolutely obsessed with Batman. I had every Batman toy Hasbro made, Batman comics. I loved it, Batman models, everything. But when I became a teenager, around 8th grade, I began to love Wolverine. I loved the X-Men, and Wolverine was my guy. I mean, he was dark, and you got to go back to like the late 70s, early 60s. Wolverine is kind of that first dark superhero, and I didn't know the term anti-hero. I mean, Wolverine's really the anti-hero, but no one had that term in 1979.
Right.
But, like, he was so different of a character. And, you know, I mean, there's a couple scenes where he's ripping people up with his claws. You're like, wait, is he good or bad? You know, like, you don't really know. But I loved Wolverine as a teenager.
That's awesome.
I feel like when you're a teenager is when you start to love Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like, when you're young, it's Superman or like Batman. But once you're rebelling a little as a teen, it's Wolverine.
It's Wolverine.
Yeah, there's something special about Wolverine.
Definitely. All right, let's get to some fantasy stuff.
News and notes from around the league.
News and notes, as always, brought to you by Dynasty Trade Calculator. Everybody hates bad trade offers, right? No one wants to be that guy. Never make a bad offer again with Dynasty Trade Calculator. Visit goingfor2.com/DTC to sign up for $15 a year. That's right. All you do is go to goingfor2.com/DTC. Get the best trade calculator for $15 a year. Stop guessing. Start calculating. All right, not a ton of notes here because we are headed into the fantasy playoffs here. So I just wanted a couple things that we want to go over, and then we'll get into some of these coaches that are on the hot seat. But the one I want to talk about, it's all over the news right now, is the Washington football team and the Cleveland Browns and how hard they've been hit with COVID. And I just want to just get your opinions, John, here. How do you think that's going to impact? I mean, it's like league wide now. I mean, it's been probably the worst week since COVID is hit that all these cases have popped up here. How do you think that affects the fantasy playoffs?
I'm very concerned because when you start losing offensive linemen, and if you lose, you know, there's 22 starters. If your team loses 8 starters, and including like Baker Mayfield, the quarterback, I mean, it's hard enough in the NFL to survive one key injury. But when you pile them on top of each other, remember that Broncos-Saints game that was just absolutely miserable?
Yes.
I mean, look, you know, Denver threw out a yeoman's effort, but they couldn't get on the scoreboard. I think Kendall Hilton attempted 2 passes. It was a disaster. I'm looking right now, I'm really concerned about the front 7. I think you can survive at the skill positions. You might not be good. You might not throw for 300. But you could compete. If you lose that offensive line, you know, Case Keenum's fine. But if you start losing 3 players along that offensive line or defensive front 7, that's going to be a disaster in my book.
Yeah, I agree. And on the other side, too, the Washington football team, I live here in Washington, and most of their COVID stuff is on the defensive side, which as fancy people are like, oh, it doesn't really affect us that much. But it really kind of does. I mean, one, it'll affect the offensive players playing against Washington, but then just a matter of short fields and everything else that's going to be potentially there with the Washington football team. So it's going to be fun or not fun. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle this year. Ryan, what are your thoughts on these?
I mean, I don't feel bad for teams losing players this year for Baltimore's hell year, but it sucks. Like, I'm real bitter, but I think it's weird. I think Cleveland's going to run Nick Chubb into the ground this week and kind of get back to the roots. And on the
I agree with you, but they got to have that offensive line, and they got to have 4 or 5 starters.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Washington, it may not, like you said, may not affect the game. It could be good for McLaurin, but those running backs, that hurts them a lot.
Yeah.
Like this little bit of role we're seeing Antonio Gibson on, this can hold it because it's not going to be a game script for them.
Yep. It's going to be brutal to watch both of those teams if they don't get some of these guys back. Now, some of them might just be close contact, might end up getting cleared for the games, but we don't know yet. Right now, it's like I think 8, 9 players on each team that are going to be out. All right, let's talk about Antonio Brown a little bit and his future with the Bucs here. Of course, he's been suspended because he faked the COVID card. Arians came out today and said it could go either way on his future here with the Bucs. I'll go to you first, Ryan. Here, give me your thoughts on do you think the Bucs will bring Antonio Brown back, and if not, do you think he has any fancy relevance anywhere else besides Tampa Bay?
Honestly, isn't it like what we've had to look at Antonio Brown at for the past 4 years? Like, no matter what, every offseason's in flux. Every season, there's always that little bit something to get nervous about, and this just adds another one to it. We'll see how he does in the playoff run, because if he comes back from the playoff, Brady likes him, obviously, and they're clicking, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But, like I said, if I have him in Dynasty, I probably didn't pay much for him, I'm probably keeping him, and you're not really going to get much for him. It's kind of just wait and hold for now.
Yeah, I agree. Let's just say he does end up not with the Buccaneers, John. Is there anywhere else in the NFL where he could have fancy relevance if he goes to another team?
I don't think this year. I think it would have to be something. I'm a big believer in culture, and that's the one thing we don't know. I don't have knowledge of the Buccaneers' culture. I do believe it's good with Brady from what we've read, but we're not there on a daily basis. I think what Arians is telling us is I've got to read the temperature of the room, of the locker room of my team, and can I afford to bring Antonio Brown back? And I personally, if I'm the head coach, I'm not doing it at this time. I can't do it. I have a Super Bowl caliber team. This team is loaded.
Yep.
I can't afford to Antonio Brown to crash my season 3 days before the NFC Championship game. Because something just happens now.
Just finds a way.
Come on. No one foresaw him allegedly. I'll be political, my journalistic background, allegedly forging a vaccination card. That was not on my bingo card for things that Antonio Brown would screw up on. But I've learned one thing. Antonio Brown's going to do things that I never imagined.
No.
Yeah.
I just can't do it.
And it got leaked because he didn't want to pay his chef.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's even crazier, dude.
Like
he lost money by not having a game check when all he had to do was give the money to the chef, and the guy wouldn't have leaked it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was like a $460,000 swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's insane.
You can't make it up, right? Like,
No, it's amazing.
it's amazing, dude.
It's crazy.
So
Especially,
I'd be done with him, but that's,
I miss him in Pittsburgh, man. It was great. It was great for local radio.
and as a Ravens fan, you probably love this debacle of
Oh, yeah, loved it. And Chase Claypool too, but it's all right.
yeah. And you had Juju as well with his TikTok dances and everything. All right,
I miss Juju on TikTok.
yeah.
Where is Juju lately? The guy injured, he's off the TikTok?
Yeah,
Come on, Juju,
think he'd be
come
doing
on
it more.
back.
All right, let's look at some of these coaches that are on the hot seat that might not be coaching next year. Of course, we have the infamous Black Monday after the season's done. A lot of coaches get fired. Some of them may not even make it that far. We'll start here with the Bears coach Matt Nagy, who's been with the Bears for quite a while now. Ryan, you think Matt Nagy's out this year?
I mean, you have to. They played terrible. They didn't put their young quarterback in the situation to succeed. They made Allen Robinson, who's consistently been a great threat, just disappear off the face of the planet. Their defense, which was supposed to be good this year, hasn't shown up. It's a bad football team, and it's not fully because of lack of talent. It's terribly run, and he's had a long enough chance there. Like that, he's reached that chord as far as it's going to go. It's got to snap.
Are you on the same page, John?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest disappointment is the quarterback position. And he didn't develop Trubisky, and I didn't like Trubisky coming out. This is not Monday morning quarterback. I had Dak ranked ahead of Trubisky. I was very low on Trubisky in my model. He didn't look good at all. But I don't think Nagy did any favors when he took over the team to make Trubisky better. I did not see improvement. And I am not going to sacrifice my franchise quarterback, Justin Fields. I've got to get a coach in there who's going to create a system around Fields for him to be successful. I still believe in Justin Fields. I know it hasn't gone great, but he's a rookie. I've got to find a coach who knows the quarterback position and is willing to coach an offense that, employs Fields' skills to the greatest of their ability.
Yeah, I'm with you both there. I think Matt Nagy has run his course there, and I think Chicago's got to move on from him. He'll finish the season out, but I think that he'll be gone. He'll be one of the first ones gone right after the season's over with. I'm going to leave the second one there for the end. We'll go to the Vikings with Mike Zimmer, Ryan. Talk about Mike Zimmer and what you think. I mean, this team actually is probably the the best losing team in the NFL right now. I mean, they look good on paper. They put up a lot of points. They always seem to be efficient, but they just can't seem to win games. They come down to the end all the time. Mike Zimmer, in or out?
I think he's in. I think he does just good enough. They can sneak into the playoffs, do it. He might have a coordinator be the fall guy for it, but they're just doing good enough, even though for what they have talent-wise isn't good enough.
Yeah, it's crazy, John. They have like 6 or 7 games that were decided on the last play, which is like ridiculous.
And that's coaching.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That comes down to coaching there. What are your thoughts on Mike Zimmer? You think he's getting another shot next year?
So I looked him up. He's 70, 54-1 in 8 seasons. That includes this year. He's okay. Nothing to write home about. He's 2-3 in the postseason. He did get to the NFC Championship game. I'm a firm believer that you've got to give your coaches 3 years. I believe that. Now, not everyone does, and that's a different argument. But I am also a firm believer after 5 years. I need to be able to say to myself one thing. Can the coach take me to the Super Bowl? And right now, if I'm the owner of the Vikings, my answer is no. So after 8 years, what does that tell me? I've got to get him out of here.
Yep.
I gave him everything, like you said, Jeff. They are loaded. I mean, who wouldn't want to coach that team? With Justin Jefferson, right? Dalvin Cook and, Adam Thielen. You got some young defensive players. You got an offensive line that's young. I mean, that's a good spot for a coach to come in. We can discuss Kirk Cousins, what they're going to do at the quarterback spot. But you know what? That's not a bad spot to be in. But I think Zimmer's run his course. He's not going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I think Zimmer is also out because, like you said, those games that come down to the end there, it's all about coaching, and I think a lot of those things have gone the other way, unfortunately, for the Vikings. Let's talk about the Giants a little bit, Ryan, and Joe Judge. Any thoughts on what happens with Joe Judge here for the Giants? Do you think he's out?
Honestly, I don't think he's going to be out. That team is kind of devoid of a lot of talent at a lot of spots. And I think he needs to get a fair shake with some team with has the ability to win. For what they have, they're not as bad as they should be, which is sad to say. But everything that's going on in that team is not his fault.
Yeah, I agree.
You have issues at quarterback. You wasted a first-round pick on a running back. The line's not good. The defense isn't good. It's just not. There's not a lot.
John, what about you? What's your thoughts on the Giants?
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I'm going to give Joe Judge a 3rd year. We also know the Giants are a conservative organization. The ownership Mara family doesn't make dramatic changes. They have an easy scapegoat, Dave Gettleman. So they're going to make the fans happier. You get Gettleman out of there. Then you make a decision on Daniel Jones. They have 2 picks. It looks like they're both going to be in the top 10, right? So they can switch to a new franchise quarterback. I'm giving Judge. I know Giant fans don't want to hear this, but I'm going to give Judge one more season with the caveat: A, you're going to develop a new young quarterback, and B, you're going to win 9 games. If you don't win 9 games, you're out. But I'm going to give him the 3rd season.
Yeah, I think I'm with you as well. I think he's the 3rd season, and Gettleman will be the scapegoat. And
that's the guy.
Yeah, I think anytime that the national audience, that the casual fan knows the GM's name, it's usually not a good thing. Yeah, it's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
So yeah, I think Gettleman is out. Joe Judge will be there, I believe, for at least one more year. All right, I left the two here for the last. I know John's a Broncos fan, so we'll talk about the Broncos and Vic Fangio. What are your thoughts on Vic Fangio? You think he's in or out?
I think he's going to stay. I really do. He's 19. What did I have? 19 and 26. Now, they have 3. They closed the season out with 3 AFC West opponents. They play everyone. Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs. I forget the exact order. If they squeak into the playoffs, there's no doubt, 100% in my mind, they're bringing him in back. They do like the defense. If you've seen the Broncos defense, it's better. It's not the Bears, 2018 when they were dominant. When Fangio was there. I think that's the first year Nagy, right?
Yep.
They got the playoffs with that dominant defense. But the defense is young. It's talented. It definitely makes things happen. The question to me is really, what do they do with the quarterback? You can't go back to Teddy Bridgewater. They have the players around Teddy Bridgewater. And they have the easy out with Melvin Gordon. The contract's expired. So it doesn't matter if Fangio wants to play 2 running backs next year. Gordon's not going to be there, right?
Yeah.
And then you get a quarterback who can use the weapon. So I think he gets a third. He probably deserves it because they're not a disaster.
Yeah.
The Broncos are not a disaster. So I'm giving him a third also.
Yeah, I like it. What about you, Ryan? Thoughts on Vic Fangio?
Everything John said, and like I said, he does have they haven't had the quarterback situation solved in that team, and if they did, it's a whole different team. And they're in a very tough division. And without that, because you can't win in shootouts with Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, you're not going to win in that division.
Yeah, agreed. You got Herbert there. You got Mahomes there. Those are going to be teams that are going to be high scoring. So I agree.
He needs a quarterback there to give him a fair shot.
Agreed. This last one here should be a fairly easy one, but this one's the juiciest of all of them. Urban Meyer, Ryan. Give me your thoughts on Urban Meyer. I know we talked about him in the past, but is he definitely going to be out after this year?
Well, John mentioned his 3-year rule, which I really like that rule. But I think Urban Meyer is such a train wreck in every single aspect of coaching that he should break that rule.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to agree with me, but he just came out that he kicked his kicker in the ass and cussed him out. And the team's complaining about him openly and publicly. Coaches are. It's bizarre. It's like he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, and Marvin Jones, who at least, I've never actually, been in a locker room, but Marvin Jones always seemed to be a stand-up guy. The fact that he walked out of the locker room and had to be coaxed back in by assistant coaches to come back to the locker room is just telling right there. And then the whole story with him calling his assistant coaches all losers, and he was a winner and they were all losers. That's not coaching. You're supposed to be a leader, and that's definitely not leadership. John, what are your thoughts here?
I'm going to agree with Ryan. It is the exception to the rule. It's a goddamn train wreck. I mean, you just see it. Like, I'm totally into 3 years, but I'm also open-minded. Urban Meyer does not have the personality to deal with professional athletes. The things that he said he probably got away with, definitely at Florida. It was a long time ago. Possibly at Ohio State. And you can get away with that with 18, 19, and 20-year-old kids. These are adult men making millions of dollars who have had professional careers. He is not a culture builder. He's used to being that, the ruler of his kingdom on a college campus where you can get away with that. You can't do that in the NFL with professional athletes. He is so in over his head. I mean, this is worse than Chip Kelly in Philadelphia. And Kelly was bad.
This makes Kelly look great.
Yeah.
Next to Urban Meyer, Kelly was a genius. I mean, Steve Spurrier with Washington Football Club was a disaster. Urban Meyer's worse than all of them. And here's the thing that I have to do if I'm Shaq Khan. Isn't that the owner, Shaq Khan?
Yep.
He's going to destroy Trevor Lawrence. If he has his hands on Trevor Lawrence for one more year, I have seen the destruction of quarterbacks in 40 years of watching football. That was the second best prospect that I've seen in my 8 years of doing profiles was Trevor Lawrence. He is a disaster right now. And there's only one reason why. That's the head coach.
Yep.
You cannot let Trevor Lawrence fail, and he will fail if you bring back Urban Meyer. You've got to get a different person in there with NFL experience. You've got to get an NFL, bring in a guy like Fangio. Right now, you know what they need? They need stabilization. And that's a veteran NFL guy. They cannot allow Urban Meyer to have one more year of directing Trevor Lawrence, a quarterback. I mean, he looks lost now.
He does.
I saw he was one of the best prospects. I just told second best prospect. He was brilliant in college. He looks like he can't play in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and he's regressed. I mean, he looked better in the beginning of the season. Yeah, it's crazy.
But it's not all his. Look at what a bad coach. Everything.
Yep.
Everything's gone wrong around him.
Agreed, 100%. All right, guys, are you tired of vague, misleading injury reports costing you games? Well, just in time for the fantasy playoffs, Going for Two's own injury analyst, Dr. James Freddy, wants to help. With his book, Injuries Suck, But Your Fantasy Team Doesn't Have to, the doc will show you a clear approach to player injuries, media reports, and coach speak, as well as how to anticipate and act quickly with confidence when injuries strike. Available for purchase on Amazon, and there's also a link in his bio if you go to @TFSDoc. Regardless of format, redraft, dynasty, DFS, for just a few bucks, the doc will help you become the best fantasy injury analyst you know. Stop guessing, start winning. All right, let's get to our end of season awards here. And I put out a bunch of polls on Facebook to sort of get their take on it, and I'll get your takes as well on who you thought each one of these categories were. And we'll start here with the biggest bust of the year, and I'm gonna go to you first, John. Here, give me your biggest bust of 2021.
To me, it's got to be Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he was a consensus top 2 pick, probably averaged out to like 1.3. Some people took him second. What's he been on the field? 4 or 5 games?
Yep.
I mean, after the disaster of last year, I think we should have been more aware as an industry, as fantasy fans, that maybe the carries in 2019 caught up with them in 2020 and the injuries. So he just sabotaged. I have him on one team. He totally destroyed it because the thing is, you were playing him. He missed 2 games with injuries. Then he wasn't there. I mean, it just turned out to be a complete disaster for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, he was a killer too because I have him in one of my leagues, and he'd be like, okay, he's starting, and you'd put him in, and he'd play like a first quarter and be hurt again, and then you basically screwed yourself. I'd rather him just be out than have to be in than leave the game in the middle. So I agree there.
At least you got it for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan, what do you got for your biggest bust this year?
I'm not going with somebody who's as big of a drop-off, but I'm going with A.J. Brown. We were looking at him as a top 5 receiver. He's right now sitting at wide receiver 41 in PPR, sitting right between Miles Sanders and A.J. Green. 46% of his yardage this year came on 2 games.
Wow.
It's not...
Wow, that's crazy.
Feast or famine's not even a description of what he's been this year. And for your first receiver off the board in most cases, you're not comfortable starting in the fantasy playoffs right now.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That is true. So the poll on Facebook, the winner was actually Allen Robinson. And a lot of people pointed out the fact that it wasn't injury related. He was just that bad. He was healthy. He just wasn't putting up.
I was gonna say him, but I felt like I was just picking on him because I feel like every show, he's every biggest boss. It just felt like piling on.
Yeah, it was too easy. It's the low hanging fruit with Allen Robinson. But yeah, I agree. It's low hanging fruit, but it definitely was a bust because you probably spent a good, high pick on him, and he wasn't good when he was playing, and then he got hurt, and now he's really not good. So that was the consensus overall pick there with Allen Robinson. All right, let's go biggest breakout player, and I'll go to you first, Ryan. Give me your breakout player of the year.
I've got Jamar Chase. He immediately just became a superstar in the league. He's sitting right now on top 5 receivers. He's producing week in and week out. He looks like he belongs in the elite conversation. And I don't know why people were forgetting this when they said he couldn't catch the football because of the lines on it before the season. But everything he's ever shown was this is what he's going to be. And he's the biggest breakout this year.
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually didn't even consider Jamar Chase, but you're right. I mean, he definitely broke out in his first year. And, I mean, his first, 6 or 7 games, he had a touchdown in every single one of them. I mean, it's amazing. We had, Jefferson last year in his amazing season. I think Jamar Chase has come in and done just about the same thing that Jefferson did last year. So, good call there. What about you, John? Who's your breakout player of the year?
In 2018, we had Patrick Mahomes. 2019, Lamar Jackson. Last year was Josh Allen. This year, it's Jalen Hurts. You were getting Jalen Hurts in the double-digit rounds. I think at one point he was like 9 weeks the only quarterback who scored over 20 points in every game. He was a top 12 finisher. He did have that one disaster game, right? I think he'd throw 3 interceptions or something like that. And then he did miss a game, and Minshew came in. So a little bit caveat, I expect him to play to the end of the year, but I think it's Jalen Hurts because you got a star at the quarterback position that you didn't have to draft until round 10 or 11.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think there was a stat that I gave on my DFS show when talking about Jalen Hurts, and the stat was actually put out by Ryan McDowell, and he had QB1s for the year and how many QB1s they had. And he had, I think, 10 or 11 QB1 games, and the next closest was like Tom Brady at like 6 or 7. So he was definitely one of those guys that you were not counting on being a QB1 every week, and he ended up being that because of that rushing ability. I like that one.
John, I think your co-host hates him. I'm not fully sure, but I'm pretty sure he hates him. Instead of my other two.
We've had discussions about that.
I know, I have to.
I'm not going to say anything.
So on Facebook, the poll winner, and it was a pretty big consensus here, and he actually won another award too. We'll talk about later on in the show. But it was Cordell Patterson, who obviously you didn't even draft. He was basically off the waiver wire. He's been in the league now, 5-6 years? I think he was Matthew Berry's. Famously, he was one of Matthew Berry's top picks a couple years ago, and really didn't pan out. He was considered really a bust, just kind of hanging around the NFL, and then he comes into the Atlanta Falcons, and now is like their do-it-all kind of running back receiver thing there. So I think Cordell Patterson's a pretty good breakout player as well. All right, let's go to Best Waiver Wire Edition, and that's basically where I'm going to go ahead and just mention Cordell Patterson won that award too on the Facebook polls. But I'm curious as to your picks here, John. Who do you have as your best waiver wire pickup?
I honestly did not talk to Jeff or Ryan. It's Cordell Patterson. I mean, I have to admit, I own him only on one best ball team. He was like a pick number round 21. You know, when you're in those late best balls. I didn't even consider him on the waiver wire after 2 weeks. Like, it wasn't even a thought, so he had a good game. I've seen random good games. And he's just been unbelievable. I mean, only less than double-digit points twice all season. And he's had over 30 once, 27.5 another, and all the other times 15, 16 above. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, just the waiver wire. If you got him weeks 1, 2, or 3, he probably turned your team around.
Yep, agreed 100%. I think he has five receiving and 5 rushing touchdowns this season, I believe is the number I saw. Yeah, just incredible. What about you, Ryan? You got anybody different besides Cordell Patterson?
Nope. And yes. I don't know what else I can say about him. He's been great. Like he turns 31 in 2 days. Like, it's crazy he's that old. It
is crazy. It's crazy to think about he broke out this late in his career, and especially the way that he broke out. I mean, it wasn't like he was just decent. I mean, this guy's been. I think he was that number that week John's talking about. He was the number 1 scorer that week. I think he had 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Well, just wait, Jeff. 15 years from now, when the show's still going, and we're still not getting paid for it, somebody's gonna bring on forgotten fantasy player Cordell Patterson.
Yeah, it's going to be his 1 year.
God, fantasy player.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, this next category is kind of a new category. We didn't do this one last year, but most annoying fantasy vulture. And Ryan, I'm going to go to you first this time. Give me your most annoying fantasy vulture.
He was annoying for me because I had him in a couple deep 20-person leagues, and I had to play him in them because they're so deep. And that's J.D. McKissick. I feel like he ruined everybody's dreams of Antonio Gibson all year. And once we saw McKissick out, Gibson took that full workload. But when he was in, he was getting touches every game. And 7 carries in games, 5 targets, 8 targets. He was getting involved and taken away from Gibson and making it a split backfield. And it's a nuisance. It was a nuisance for somebody you spent a 3rd-round pick on.
Yep, agreed. I actually was really high on Gibson. I actually took him in the first round in one of my really late leagues because I just wanted to have him in that league, and I knew I wouldn't get him otherwise. And, of course, they came back to bite me because McKissick's been so good. What about you, John? Who do you have for your most annoying fantasy vulture?
I'm going to go to Denver. It's Melvin Gordon, man.
Amen.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, we all knew he was going to play. And especially early in the year, I knew Fangio, the veteran coach with the veteran running back, defensive-oriented team. What's shocking me is Gordon's played every week but 1.
Yep.
So he continued to play, and then at least I did, I'm sure many other of our viewers, I love Javonta Williams. He was my number 2 back. He's had some moments, and he's actually not been bad. But can you imagine if Javonta Williams just had 40% of Melvin Gordon's numbers? Like, it's all right that Gordon played, But if you give Javonta 250 more yards, 3 more touchdowns, like 10 more receptions, Javonta Williams is a top 10 back.
Yep.
But you got Melvin Gordon vulturing everything there.
John, who is the old fullback for the Raiders who was like the ultimate touchdown vulture?
Oh, there was a guy on the Raiders.
I was thinking of Mike Tolbert at first, but there's the one for the Raiders. I can't think of his name. It's driving me crazy.
He might have been with the first John Gruden, right? In the turn of the century. Oh
yeah.
My God, you're right, but I can't remember who he is right now. Maybe
I bet if I Google touchdown vulture, he'll show up.
Yeah, speaking of Javonta Williams, I mean, you look at just last week in general. I mean, what did Melvin Gordon have? I mean, if you were to give those, even half those numbers that Melvin Gordon had to Javonta Williams, he probably had the number 1 overall week last week. I mean, it's insane. They had 4 touchdowns between them, but if they were all on Javonta, they would have been, unbelievable game.
Yes.
All right, let's look at greatest single game performance, and this one was a landslide victory on Facebook. But I want to hear yours before I give the Facebook one. I'll go to you first this time, John.
I think it's easy, and I think I'm going to agree with Facebook because I looked around, but nothing was close. It's Jonathan Taylor versus Buffalo. 185 yards, rushing 5 touchdowns, scored 53.4 points. Just as spectacular. And what made it more spectacular, there were people suggesting to bench Jonathan Taylor
because of the Bills
against
defense.
the Bills in that game, and he was just unbelievable.
Yep, agreed. That was I definitely had some sit starts there when it was guys. I'm like, why would you sit Jonathan Taylor for that guy? But because of that defense, people were scared for some reason. I'm glad that he had that humongous game.
Oh my God,
Ryan, are you on the same boat with Jonathan Taylor?
I am. I'd possibly think of that Dalvin Cook one last week against the Steelers because a lot of people benched him, myself included.
Yep.
And why I'm no longer in Scott Fishbowl because I was a coward. But that was a pretty great performance too. But Jonathan Taylor just he single-handedly beat teams.
Yeah, he definitely smashed. A couple of ones that got voted on, that got a few votes, was Derrick Henry's week 2, where he had 237 yards, total yards, and 3 touchdowns. Aaron Jones's week 2 as well, had 6 catches, 114 total yards, and 4 touchdowns. And Leonard Fournette, the week after Jonathan Taylor had his big week, he had his 4 total touchdowns as well. So they were also in the running. But JT took the lead by far. I think there was 50 votes to 2. It was pretty crazy. All right, let's go with the It's Never Gonna Happen award. This is the player that we've all as a fantasy community, or maybe you personally, have been kind of holding out. This guy's gonna break out. This guy's gonna break out. But you're finally, after this year, ready to give up on him. I'll go to you first, Ryan.
I'm going a pair of guys together, and just because they're so close, and that is Devin Singletary and Zack Moss.
Yeah.
It's over. This offense should be easy for them to run in, and they're not good at all. They're not efficient. They don't get the job done. Josh Allen has to do the majority of their running for them. This team would be so dynamic if they had even a decent running back. And these guys aren't it. Zack Moss is barely getting carries now.
Yeah.
It's over for these guys.
I think the epitome of that whole conversation right there is watch the Buffalo Bills first half from last week. I mean, they didn't hand the ball off to a running back for the entire first half. How do you go an entire first half and not give a running back at least 1 carry?
Josh Allen has more rush attempts than Zack Moss right now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I agree. I was really high on Singletary, too. I wasn't as high on Zack Moss coming out, but I was high on Singletary, and unfortunately, he's one of those guys that just, you got to give up on him at this point. John, who do you have for your It's Never Gonna Happen award?
I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but really this is related to Superflex. I've gotten over the last 4 years a lot of Derek Carr because he's always sitting around as my third quarterback. And I liked him, and when you got a spot, start him, you're happy. The problem is he's so god-darn inconsistent. You're like, I got a bye week, I got to play Derek Carr, and that's the week he scores 9 points. Yeah. And then when you're playing your other 2 starters, he goes off for 26.
Yep.
It's never going to happen. The Raiders have to move on from him. I mean, you talk about giving Mike Zimmer a ton of time. The Raiders have done everything to make Derek Carr successful. There's a point it's better for Derek Carr. It's better for the organization. They've just got to move on. And for my super flex sanity, I'm never taking him again. I don't care what round it is.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one there for super flex for sure. The winner on the Facebook polls, and this one was a pretty big victory as well, was Mecole Hardman, who everybody loved. Yeah, everyone thought he was the next Tyreek Hill, but that definitely never panned out, and I think it is definitely time to give up on Mecole Hardman for sure.
And why do you need next Tyreek Hill when you already have next Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, exactly. And you already have Tyreek Hill on your team, and he's still pretty good at that. All right, this next one here is the Lifetime Achievement Award. This is a player that's past their prime, was drafted reasonably high this year, but it's time to sort of give up on him. He's not going to be drafted high again next year. So, Ryan, I'm going to go to you first. Give me your Lifetime Achievement Award.
Jeff, I feel like you should have loaded taps up for this one or something. I'm going with Julio Jones. It's been a fantastic ride, and I love Julio. He's been nothing but spectacular, but it just feels like the wheels are falling off. He's not on a team that's going to be high volume passing attack, which means he's never going to get that probably again by the time his contract's up. I think it's done.
Yeah,
it's really sad.
Yep, I think the Facebook poll was also very high on Julio Jones as the Lifetime Achievement Award. What about you, John? Who do you have for your Lifetime Achievement Award?
So it goes back to a memory I had 3 years ago. I acquired Robert Woods in a first-round pick for this player.
Oh, well,
it was Odell Beckham. Mm-hmm. And I got destroyed on Twitter I posted it in my Dynasty trade. People are like, you got ripped off. You can't trade Odell. I'm like, I like Robert Woods. He's not Odell, but I also get a first-round pick, so I'm happy, right? Man, since I made that trade,
you're a genius.
Odell has been straight downhill. Now, he's not Antonio Brown chaos. However, he is a close second. He's in the same rowboat as Antonio Brown. I mean, I'm done. I haven't had Odell in 3 years on any team. I mean, I hear people waxing poetically every summer for the last 2 summers about Odell. He hasn't been good since 2017. Yep. Just stop it.
I saw after his touchdown on Twitter that he's back.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he gets COVID, right? Everything, it's not happening.
Yep, I agree 100%. So, yeah, on Facebook, Julio Jones won by a landslide, but a few more guys that were getting votes here. A.J. Green was one of them. Chris Carson was one of them. And Matt Ryan also got a vote there as well. Yeah, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones basically could be on that same list together. They can do a duo Lifetime Achievement Award there. All right, let's finish it up on Fantasy MVP. I left this kind of open because some people take Fantasy MVP as the one who scored the most points. Some take it as the guy that you drafted late that ended up blowing up. So I'm going to let you define MVP however you wish to define it. I'll go to you first, John.
I always consider draft capital. That, to me, is very important. I went Cooper Kupp because if you drafted Cooper Kupp, what is he, a 5th or 6th round pick? The 2 teams that I acquired Cooper Kupp were like 11-3 and 10-4.
Yep.
To acquire him as your second receiver when I started out with like 2 or 3 running backs and a stud receiver, I mean, you got him. It was ridiculous. So when you consider draft capital, to me, it's Cooper Kupp. Even though the raw numbers might tell you somebody else, no one expected this. And when you compared that with when you're roster building, Cooper Kupp changed your whole season around.
Yeah, I like that one. What about you, Ryan? Who do you have for your MVP?
The same person who's on both my 2 teams with them, or both 10-4, is Cooper Kupp. Like, he's the receiving Triple Crown this year. He's killing it. Like, it's consistent. He's getting peppered with so many targets, it doesn't make sense. And it's awesome. Like, if you have him, you're winning.
Yep. And that was the poll winner, too, was Cooper Kupp as well, by a pretty good margin. Close second was actually Deebo Samuel, another receiver you probably got pretty late. He's done really well. Jonathan Taylor made the list because obviously he's been killing it. And then Justin Jefferson, who's been really coming on. I mean, he's been good all season, but the last few games he's been really, really good. So he got some recency bias there, but he's another one that was pretty good as well. All right, we got some listener questions to get to, and of course, we're in the fantasy playoffs, so there's not a whole lot of trade questions that we normally get, so we got a lot of sit-start questions here. The first one I have here is from CW Yant22. He wants to know Henderson with the unknown of the Michelle role. I guess he's thinking if Henderson's back and then Michelle's still going to be there in the mix versus Seattle, or are you going with Brandon Ayuk versus Atlanta in his flex spot? Ryan, who do you got here?
We haven't really heard much about Henderson fully being back because he was injured before he got COVID.
Yep.
And that makes me nervous, just the combination of the two. Because if COVID makes your immune system weak and you weaker in general, that could make that healing process for his injury slower. I mean, I have no idea, but it made sense.
Sounds good. Yeah, it sounds good.
It sounds good. So I'm going with Ayuk. I think he's safer. Atlanta's putrid, and he's starting to get a little bit of a roll. But I'm not real comfortable with either right now.
Yeah, I think both of them are pretty scary. What about you, John? Henderson, if he's back, or Ayuk versus Atlanta?
Well, I'm definitely going to go Henderson if he's back, but I don't know if he's going to be back. So I would how I just kind of nerdy self. I'm going to put Ayuk in the lineup now, and then double check it Sunday morning at 11:30 or 3 whenever the kick up, then put in if Henderson's active.
So you're not worried about if Henderson's active? You're not worried about Michelle cutting into his workload at all?
No, I'm kind of a big believer. If he's active and he's been as good as Henderson, I'm going to play him because he's also the pass catcher.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He'll at least get something, so I like Henderson there.
Agreed. All right, Ryan, this next one, we talked about him a little bit earlier in the show, but Antonio Gibson over Saquon Barkley. Which one do you like there? Antonio Gibson or Saquon Barkley?
I'm going Gibson. Oh, God, this feels really bad to say. Honestly, I'm going Barkley. I want to say Gibson, but Barkley's still getting volume. He's still involved in the passing game. He's had high targets four of the last 5 games, and his low one was still only 3 targets. He had 16 carries. Like, he's getting volume, and they may be passing a lot against Dallas, which means they're doing a lot of dump offs because of that pass rush. So that should benefit him.
What about you, John? Antonio Gibson or Saquon Barkley here?
So this is very hard, and I thought about it a lot. I'm going to go Gibson, but it's risky as heck. They're both in bad spots. I think the Giants could get blown out. And Ryan's right. Game script says Barkley should get pass catches, receptions. But what if Dallas just blows up the Giants? I mean, that pass rush, Micah Parsons, forget about it.
He's unbelievable.
I mean, I think I got to go Gibson, but it's very, very close.
All right, so I guess I'll be the tiebreaker here, and I think I'm going to lean Saquon Barkley. I think that's who I suggested he go with Saquon Barkley because of the volume. Antonio Gibson, we assume he's going to get the volume, but it's been one of those things with the Washington football team that you don't really know. Is it going to be a McKissick week if he's going to be back and healthy? Is he getting the volume? So, yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be Barkley for me. All right, this next one here is from Ryan Vins. It's half PPR. We're going to pick 2 of these guys: Waddle, Metcalf, Hollywood, Gallup, or Josh Jacobs. So 2 guys: Waddle, Metcalf, Hollywood Brown, Gallup, or Josh Jacobs. And it is half-point PPR. Ryan, who do you have out of those guys? 2 of them.
I can't believe I'm answering how I'm answering at this point in the season. Jalen Waddle's been the most consistent of any of these guys this year, and I think he's a must-start every week, plus a matchup versus the Jets. That really helps. He's the easiest. Of the next ones, DK Metcalf's just not clicking, even though it feels like it should be a slam dunk pick. So I'm going Josh Jacobs against the Skeleton Browns crew. They should play with a lead. They should run him heavily. He should just beat what they have left up.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it is Waddle Jacobs because, I mean, you look at Metcalf. Usually Metcalf's locking in, but he just hasn't been very good. What about you, John?
I can't believe he's not a lockup right now. He could have been a fantasy bust.
Yeah, that's true. He definitely could have been in that mix for sure. John, you agree there? Is it Waddle Jacobs, or do you think you can put Metcalf in one more week?
I have to start Jacobs, so that I agree with. 4 letters. J-E-T-S. Waddle be in. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Waddle could score twice. They're going to win that game. The Jets are a mess. The Dolphins have an outside shot at the playoffs. And Waddle's just getting peppered with too many targets.
Yep.
He's too good. And if you haven't noticed, Tua's playing good football lately. He's throwing better. He's healing.
Yeah, I saw a stat.
It's like we were too quick to judge.
Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine that. Yeah, I saw a stat, and maybe Ryan gave me the stat for all I know, but in November, he had the highest completion percentage all time. I think it was like 80% in November, all time highest ever. So that's pretty telling right there.
Yeah, you just confirmed what my eyeballs have been watching. He's healthy. He's throwing the ball with confidence. I mean, it's obvious when you watch the games.
Yep. All right, we got one last one from Charlie K. So he has Zeke, unhappily, he says, as his RB1. He needs his RB2 between these guys. So Rashad Penny, Ramondre Stevenson, or A.J. Dillon. I'll go to you first, John. Of those three, who are you picking for the RB2?
I cannot believe I'm going to say this. I'm shocked that I'm even considering it. But the one most likely to get the majority of touches,
yep,
and I'm going to bank on touches, it's Rashad Penny right now. I mean, there could be a timeshare in New England. You never know what they're going to do for sure. And with Penny, he's probably going to be the most likely with 20 touches. So I'm going to go Rashad Penny.
It's crazy to think that. What about you, Ryan? I know Ryan's going to struggle. If he has to pick Penny, he's going to probably... he did not like Penny at all.
I'm real bitter about Penny right now. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm upset about it. I'm going to say unkind things about people I like. It depends if Damian Harris is starting or not, or if Damian Harris is playing or
Good
not.
point,
If Damian Harris is out, I'm starting Ramondre Stevenson because him getting the full workload is just a handful, and I love it. But if Harris is back, or we don't know.
Say it, Ryan. I want to hear you say it.
Ryan. I'm leaving the starting spot empty.
He's leaving it empty.
He's taking the 0.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the spot.
Taking the 0 like a man.
That's awesome.
But no, you have to start Penny because
he's going to get it. Yep.
And A.J. Dillon, who's played great, Baltimore's run defense has been awesome this year. Like, it's one of the things that's consistently been really, really good. They've shut down Nick Chubb twice in a row. Like, they're hard to run on.
Yeah.
And it's not good for him.
Agreed 100%. And I think it is. I think, like you said, the caveat is Damian Harris. If he plays, I'm going Ramondre. If he's out, then it's Rashad Penny. Believe it or not, it is Rashad Penny. He did look good last week. All right, let's get to our favorite segment of the night.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
So for any of the new listeners out there that haven't heard John give his forgotten player before, this segment was basically made for John. I mean, I think I had John in mind when I was writing this segment up. But John, after that, this big intro here, you got to come strong here. Who is your forgotten fantasy player this week?
I'm going to go back to my first year playing fantasy football, which was 1989. But I'm going to have to preface this player. He gets lost in the history books because the Rams of the 70s were ground Chuck with Chuck Knox, and they finally reached a Super Bowl with Ray Malavasi, 1979. They lost to the great Steelers team. In one of the great Super Bowl games that no one really pays attention to, that Steelers-Rams game, Rams led entering the fourth quarter, 19-17. Great game. And then you have the Showtime Rams. You have the greatest show on turf, Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. In between, you have the John Robinson, Eric Dickerson, Jim Everett type of decade. And they had this wide receiver named Henry Ellard. He was unfreaking goddamn believable, Henry Ellard. In 9 seasons, he had 7,000-yard seasons. In 1988 to 1990, he had 1,414 yards, 1,382 yards, and 1,294 yards.
Wow.
And this was on a ground-oriented team. These Rams had a great offensive line with Jackie Slater. The amazing part of it, in his career, Henry Ellard, 814 receptions, for almost 14,000 yards.
Wow.
He averaged 17 yards a reception. What is his goddamn ADOT? I mean, people would have loved this player. I bet you his ADOT was like 28 yards down the field. Like these Rams teams, this was the 7-step drop. Literally, go deep, young man, max protect, and Henry Ellard would be open 30 yards down the field. 65 career touchdowns. He gets lost because everyone thinks of Dickerson, Everett, obviously Torrey Holt, and Isaac Bruce are above him in the Rams record books. But look up Henry Ellard. Unbelievable. His last 1,000-yard season, he was 35.
Wow.
35 years of age. And he averaged 19.5 yards per reception at 35. What is the handicap on a 35-year-old getting open down the field?
That is awesome. Ryan, I saw you over there. You were Googling something.
I looked up his stats while you do this. At age 33, he hit 150 target season.
Wow.
Get out of here. He was playing 15 years.
That's crazy.
It's a dude. He is so good.
I've never even heard of this guy. It's amazing. His numbers are ridiculous.
Go watch YouTube Henry Ellard highlights. The dude is unbelievable, and I had him so much. I love those Rams teams, but he gets lost in the history books.
Half his career, the first 9 years, they didn't even have targets as a stat.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Targets weren't available until he was 31.
We don't even know how much he was targeted.
He has 649 targets just in his age 33 to 37.
That is crazy. That is an awesome one, John. So we've been doing this segment now almost 6 years, and me and Ryan have heard a lot of forgotten fantasy players, but every time you come on, you bring somebody that we honestly had never heard of, and I love it. I love it every time. Great stuff. All right, guys, that wraps the podcast up. That wraps up the podcast for the entire year. We won't be back until 2022. Not 100% sure yet when that'll be coming back, but I'll make sure to announce it on Twitter and everything. But before we do, let's go around the room really quick. John, give us your Twitter handle where we can find you at and what you're working on.
First, happy holidays, everyone. Thank you, Ryan and Jeff. I'm honored to be on the last show of the year. I appreciate it. I love coming on. I think this is the 4th year coming on at the end. I think so. So I appreciate it very much. And you can find me on Twitter at GridironSkull91. I couldn't afford the A and the R. And check out all my draft profiles starting in early February.
Good stuff. Ryan, what you got going on?
Find me also at Draft Bible. I have my show come out Wednesdays, or Dynasty Draft Dream Show. And then find me here on Wednesdays. We are also copying off you and doing draft profiles some point in the new year that we got to record. Probably not as good, but
no,
come see a Simpletons values of players. I got you.
Aspiring to be the next John Laub, Ryan Searfoss here.
Like his left toe, maybe.
All right, guys, I mentioned this is our last Armchair Fantasy show this week, but we still have some of our other Going for Two live shows that will go through the rest of the season, so make sure you check them out. And we have our holiday show this coming Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be playing Fantasy Jeopardy with the show host from Going for Two Live, so make sure you check that out as well. For John, for Ryan, I'm Jeff. We will see y'all next year.